hope that it ends up being a really positive experience both for the citizens and for us here that oversee parts of the city government. I want to thank, in addition to the citizens who came out, I want to thank all the folks from law enforcement here. They're from the Sheriff's Office, from JPD, and also from the U.S. Attorney's Office. Mr. Lemons here as well, somewhere happening. And the media, I want to thank the media for coming out and covering this important topic discussion. And I want to thank some of the business leaders who come here that are business owners that want to discuss some of the things that are, part of the discussion of crime in the city. And as late as the beginning, I'd like to ask the associate pastor from my church, Christ Methodist Church, Rocky Shack, to come give us an invitation.
Let me pray for us. Almighty God, we thank you so much for your love, your grace, and your mercy, and we thank you so much for these citizens. I love being able to look around this room and just being able to see the different faces, the different roles, the different purposes we serve in our community. Lord, I'm just glad that you brought us all together, and we're here on common ground to solve a problem that we all care about. So, Almighty God, we just ask that you be with our leaders who are here to lead the community where we live, the places where we work, the places where our kids play. Lord, I pray that you remind them to ask the right questions. Not just how do we fix this, but to whom do we need to listen to? Lord, I pray that you grant us the strength and the courage that whenever it is our time to speak, that we speak up boldly. That whenever it is our time to listen, that we're patient. And Lord, we need you. We need you to remind us that no matter where we live, everyone in this place, we are all neighbors. So do that for us tonight, Lord. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Rocky. This suggestion from Councilman Vance to me about 10 days ago was that we ought to try to call a town hall. I took that to heart. And the person I called was Ken Wilson, who is the president of the Ridgewood Park Neighborhood Association. So I'm going to let him be the moderator to start us off here and get the discussion going.
All right, thank you all for coming out. I'm Ken Wilson, as you stated, president of Ridgewood Park Neighborhood Association. Roughly we have about 2,700 homes in our area. I'm grateful for Councilman Foote and I for collaging this wonderful forum, and I thank all of our law enforcement partners, the clergy that is here, in addition to U.S. Attorney Office. In our business, I think this is a very imperative forum. Clearly we all are here for one reason, that's to make Jackson safer. I want to make it clear that this is an effort to garner, I think, a partnership effort with our business, and not so much as to scold them on what they have or haven't done. We want to make sure that we are unified in our effort to make Jackson safer. This dialogue is a Q&A. I mean, we could have some pre-written questions that we've received. However, we want raw and honest discussions, and I think that's the only way that we're going to move forward with Jackson forward. I will be asking our law enforcement agencies a few questions that I received from the community, and I'm starting off with the Jackson Police Department. And whomever would like to respond, they're more than welcome to it. Their microphone there. So, in regard to the city of Jackson in 2020, WLBT stated that we were on 20-year high in homicides. Last year, the city occurred at 128 homicides in Jackson and nearly 300 shootings. What policy adjustments do you think can be made to make Jackson safer in reference to violent crimes in Jackson?
Well, good evening, everybody. Good evening. Thank you for that question. And as I ponder and do research about violent crime since the pandemic. I did a research from the Christian Emergency Network, and just this year alone, there has been an increase in homicides all across the nation. I'll give you some numbers. And I know we're talking about Jackson, but this is a crisis in this nation. Okay? New York, homicide rate is up 45%. Chicago, 55%. Los Angeles, 38%. Washington, D.C., 20%. Philadelphia, 40%. Louisville, 70%. Cincinnati, 28%. Detroit, 19%. Cleveland, 40%. Houston, 42%. Minneapolis, 40%. Denver, 50%. Fresno, 64%. So it's just not Jackson, Mississippi, where we're seeing crime, but we have ran operations on top of operations inside the city to address the crime issue here in our city. And just from the eyes of a police officer, I can tell you what we face with. We're faced with high poverty. We're finding situations where we're having 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds living in homes with 19-year-olds and trying to survive. They walked away from their home for whatever reason. So we have some social issues here in Jackson. For us to get to the root of crime, we must address the brokenness in communities. Because when you have these people living with young people without any guidance, and when we go to these homicide scenes like the last one we had, triple homicide, whoever killed those individuals locked the door before they left. In many of the cases, we're solving the homicide. You know why? Because they're shooting people they know. And it puts the dark cloud over the city like everybody's doing, and that's not the case. It's just individuals shooting individuals that they know. And that is very difficult for any police department to police, because it's very difficult to police human behavior, because they never call us to say they're about to shoot their cousin, their dad. We have sons killing mothers. You have sons killing fathers inside the privacy of their own home, and that's very difficult for any police chief or any police department to prevent.
Thank you. Have you all made any policy adjustments in reference to how to address any community involvement, any type of activity, any proactive measures to reduce violent crimes in Jackson? Clearly, we had more recently had a crime, a homicide on Ridgewood Road Monday, I think at 11 a.m. And my phone did not stop ringing about that. So any type of proactive measures you all have put in place since the surge last year in Jackson?
Yeah, in my Operation Crush, this is one of the plans in Operation Crush that we have the warsmen to organize the community. But we have identified a suspect in that shooting. Still in all, in that shooting, you had individuals shoot individuals that they had conflicts with. They didn't call the police to do it. So we have Operation Safe Streets, where we saturate every community. We ride around the blue lights. We meet with communities. We meet with virtual, whether in person. We're meeting with the communities to address the needs of the problems within that community. But still in all, those individuals had their mind made up to commit that crime, and it will be very difficult to prevent that. We can't have them we can't be with them 24 hours a day.
Thank you. Are there any questions in the audience? We definitely want this to be a Q&A. We want to give everyone an opportunity to ask any questions in reference to the conversation. And I'm sorry, I can't reach over there, but if you wish, you come here and I'll hold the mic for you. His mom demands action, sure. All right, great.
Thank you. I'm Mary Helen Abel. I'm with Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense America. And evidence shows that policing is not always the best way to interrupt these kind of violent outbreaks. And I am curious as to what the police force in Jackson is doing to work with the credible messengers and pure violence. Are you familiar with those programs?
Yes.
Okay. So what you're doing to work with those folks who are trained, who have been trained by people all across the nation on how to use these evidence-based practices to interrupt violence before it happens, to isolate and interrupt violence before it happens, so that it doesn't spread throughout the community and it doesn't hang over us like a flag, because it's not just us. It's everywhere, and it is interpersonal. The gun violence that's happening across the nation is interpersonal. So I'm curious about the relationship that the police force has with these folks who are criminal justice involved folks who work in these communities.
Yes, we were met with credible messengers, and you're exactly right. I believe that that is a very important tool that we can use, because many of those individuals have been there and done that. Kids right now, young people, they're not afraid of the police. But if you've been somewhere in life and you've been part of a gang or whatever, a person been there and done that can touch a little kid that is 14, 13 years old, that their parents, the police, just cannot reach you. Look in their eyes, they just cannot reach you. So credible messengers is a very important tool that we have had conversations with, that we can use to get inside of homes. We've organized meetings in every corner of this city, but the people have to want to come to these meetings. We have conflict resolution classes where we bring social workers in, plead to ask people to come. If you got an anger problem, if you got an issue, come to us, talk to a social worker so that we can provide you with some kind of services. But all across, in the city of Jackson, all across this nation, many of the communities are absent from services, social services in the community. Until we reach the community, these broken homes, and it's everywhere. Broken homes, kids out here looking for love, and they don't find it, they're gonna hang with people, their peers, and that is not gonna turn out right, because they're being led astray. Without social services to touch these broken homes, to touch people, we got an uphill battle, and it takes everybody. It takes everybody, every police department. You have people also leaving this profession all across the nation. All across the nation, because we're dealing with a human problem. And it takes everybody, local, federal, city government, pastors. It takes people to step up. Just like the pastor said right now, you need people now. It's time to step up, not just for Jackson, Mississippi, all across this nation. And everyone plays a very important part. Because you have people taking the lives of people that they know, family members. We live that, we see that every single day. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to see that.
Thank you, Chief. Is there anyone else that have a question before we go to the, we want you all to, we get a lot of responses. We got a lot of responses about this forum. There were a lot of questions that were submitted, but we would like more authentic responses instead of me reading from a paper. But I will do so. So if you have a concern, you have the Chief Law Enforcement Officer here in the city. We thank him at the U.S. Mr. Patton from the U.S. Attorney Office who works with prosecution. And you have the Chief Law Enforcement Officer in the county here. So this is an opportunity for us not to fray away from asking questions. Thank you, Chief. The next question will be Sheriff Lee Vance. Clearly, we have our issues with crime, and I think that the consensus among the community that we need more partnerships in law enforcement. What could your agency possibly do to assist the Jackson Police Department in addressing some of the criminal elements in this city?
Good evening. I'll talk a little bit about that and strategies and what I kind of feel like we need to try to do in somewhat of a short term and a long term. First thing is that we have what I believe is a healthy working relationship with the Jackson Police Department. When we start talking about issues that we've seen in Jackson, especially recently, the shooting on Ridgewood Road, and this is not to diminish any other case. When you said that before I say anything else. The shooting on Ridgewood Road, and I would say the shooting at Bailey Avenue in front of Patrick's. I felt very disturbed by those because those are the type of acts where people, innocent people, are at risk. And that's a huge problem. A lot of the times we see people like Chief Davis spoke about that have existing beefs, so to speak, and that violence will play out in a lot of different places. But when you have individuals that are riding down the street and firing automatic weapons out of a car, that's a very, very serious issue, obviously. So what I believe we have to have, and I think is time tested, is more police visibility. And when I say police, I mean in a plural sense, as police and deputies. And what we have to have that because right now, it's my belief, and I won't talk in specifics, I'll let the chief do that. But what we're doing in the Sheriff's Department is we're trying to build our Sheriff's Department so that we can have a greater impact inside the city of Jackson. So what do I mean? When I came in the office 15 months ago, most of the time, and this is what I gathered from doing research from existing members of the Sheriff's Department, there will be 2 deputies, 2, that were responsible for working the entire county of Hinds during the shift. 2. From County Line Road to the Copiah County Line, from the Pearl River all the way over to the Big Lake River. 2. So obviously the ability of the Sheriff's Department to impact is minimal. So what we've been trying to do is build. Right now, on an average, we've gone from 2 deputies working on the streets per shift to about 7. That's a big improvement, but that's not where we need to be. Hinds is a huge county, 243,000 residents. Unincorporated Hinds County is primarily our responsibility to be the initial law enforcement response agency. So in order for us to have more of an impact, more visibility inside of the city of Jackson, then we're going to have to continue to build our ranks. And that's what we're about now. Short-term partnerships, we work inside the city of Jackson now, and obviously it is not enough to have the impact that we need to have. So we're going to have to work on that. In the short term, I think the JPD and the Hinds County Sheriff's Department need to continue to work together. As far as strategies, I'm hoping that some of the same type of analysis is going on as it relates to these shootings. Because what you have is, you start talking about whodunits, where somebody gets shot and nobody knows, or you talk about these smoking gun kind of killings. Now, what we're seeing is some of these feuds that are being played out with these gangs and these drug organizations. You go buy $50 worth of dope on credit, you can't pay $50, you got a good chance of getting your house shot up. That's what happens. So what I'm hoping to see, and what we're going to work toward in the near future is forging a stronger relationship with our federal partners, trying to identify some of these these individuals that are chronic offenders, chronic violent offenders, in hopes of getting them into the federal system, where we think that it's more effective as far as getting these individuals convicted and sentenced. But in the short term, we've got to figure out a way to grow our numbers. One thing COVID did affect in the sheriff department, because I don't like I just want to be as honest and straightforward as I can with you. For instance, in the town of Edwards, COVID just about took out their entire police department. So what that means, not taking them out as well as deaths, but cases they weren't able to work. So what that means is the sheriff's department has to go in then and respond to all calls and Edwards. Same thing happened in Utica. There's been a changing of the guard in Terry, where their chief retired or resigned, went to another department, took half of the department with him. So then we have to start to go and respond to calls primarily in the city of Terry. So the point I'm trying to make is that we can't necessarily sacrifice one part of the county for another. We do have we have our DUI unit, which is made up of about 4 or 5 deputies that we deploy in Jackson on a regular basis. On Sundays, we've assisted the police department in trying to regulate some of the drag racing and burning and spinning and whatever they call that. So we do have a presence in Jackson, but I will freely admit that it's not nearly what we need. But it's going to take time for us to build our ranks, and hopefully as we build our ranks, we can have more impact. One last point. I alluded to trying to distinguish who some of these hardcore violent criminals are. We have to go after those people. We have to go after those people. On the social side of it, I agree with Chief Davis. There's going to have to be more social programs, and they're going to have to be advertised, right? I recall one of the shootings where a 16-year-old boy ended up shooting, I think it was his mother's boyfriend. That's a situation that calls for intervention. May have could have been prevented with the right type of social intervention. Because I'm sure he shot that man because he was abusing his mother. That's going to happen all the time, unless there's some type of intervention into that family unit. So there's a lot for everybody to do, but I am encouraged by this meeting. I'm proud to be able to come because we're going to have to work together to solve these problems.
Thank you, Sheriff. This will be for the Jackson Police Department. I think earlier this year, there were a group of individuals who shut down the highway for an excess of 30 minutes to an hour drag racing. Following that, as you look at the next door outlets, the social media outlets, and some of the WWT articles stating that there was drag racing. I don't know exactly where it was, but they were spinning out, for lack of better words, on the church ground. What have your department done reaction-wise to those incidents? And what do you all plan to do to prevent that from continuing to happen throughout the city?
Well, shut down the interstate, we prevent that. And the interstate is the state responsibility. Still in all, it's in the city of Jackson. But we have issued almost 4,000, since that incident, almost 4,000 citations across the city. And that drifted after we did research, asking myself, why would someone shut down the interstate? Come to find out, that's all across the country that people, young people, I guess they don't have enough to do. But they did that. But we have Operation Safe Streets. We have all 4 precincts where we have a sergeant, a couple of officers, and we, especially on the weekends, Saturday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, where we have these special operations where we know from social media what these individuals were gathering to you call it cruising, drifting, racing, whatever. So we have sent officers out there in those areas and prevented a lot of the racing. And as a result, we have cut down some racing, drifting, speeding across the city.
Sure. And here's a follow-up question that I received from the Lake Trace community. Random shooting throughout the community has become prevalent in the last several years. I would say for my community, at least 3 reports of gunshots in the last 3 weeks at various hours, whether it be midday, 5 or 1 a.m. in the morning, and sometimes early as 9 p.m. What measures do you think can be implemented to reduce the visibility, or do you think visibility works in those instances?
Well, visibility definitely work. And when I received all those calls from everybody in every ward about shots fired. So we deployed officers to those locations. We never see anybody shoot. So people got guns, people shoot, but they're not going to shoot right there in front of the police officers. So when we get on the scene, if we see somebody walking down the street with a gun, they have a right to walk down the street with a gun. If we don't know they're a convicted felon, we can't go interrogate them about their weapon if we did not see them shoot that weapon. And the public must understand that we are an open carry state. So many individuals, if they're not a convicted felon and they're of age to carry a gun, they can have their gun. And we cannot go snatch their gun from them. It's their right to have guns. But anytime we have those calls, we deploy resources, police there with blue lights to at least let the citizens know that we're out there. And I receive those calls, and everyone I receive, I call patrol operation, and they send officers to those locations.
Thank you. This question is from the Heatherwood community. Do you think the gun shows have an impact on violent crimes in Jackson?
Well, of course, because people got guns, but that don't give them the right to shoot the gun. We have a gun problem in the city of Jackson. It will be great to see the citizens step up and do something about these gun shows because these guns are getting to the hand of unreasonable people, young people. It would be great to have some backup from the community to say we must stop gun sales in our city, because if we don't, it's going to be very difficult to get any better because these young people have guns. We stop when we get tons of guns. But I'm not saying that the gun show is causing them to act out, but we have a gun problem. We must all sit at the table and look at that and all come together to develop laws to govern the open carry here in the city of Jackson.
Thank you. Is the precinct 4 candidate here?
Yes.
Okay. Sure. You have a question?
Just out of curiosity, how many of those guns that you find on the ones you pick up are actually purchased legally?
Well, that's another issue. We recovered a lot of guns, and many of those guns are stolen. Yeah.
Yes.
Mr. Wilson, I'm just curious. I know these recent shootings have been in our northeast area, but I'm just curious, is the mayor or any of the other city government people, the councilman, or any of those people here tonight? I see Ashby, but I don't see anybody else.
Well, to be honest, I'm not sure that the invite was extended.
I mean, they could speak up.
But it is open to the public. Would you like to elaborate on it further, or primarily what I said, it was open to the public, so.
They didn't have to be invited.
Well, sorry. Yeah, we do have mayoral candidates here and city council candidates here, but as I can see it, and I stand corrected, so yeah, I see Ms. Angus, and I see Ms. Charlotte Ridgewood. I don't see anyone else in particular that's holding office at this time. Yeah, but I don't have an answer to that.
Yeah, and I can speak on that. And one thing about the mayor, just yesterday, we had a conversation about the violent crime in the city. We tell the mayor about the plans that we have. We ask for resources. In December, we graduated police class. We've been having back-to-back police classes due to the mayor. He gives us what we need to fight crime. But still in all, it's very difficult to police human behavior. So he's very concerned about it. We have talks and meetings, and when shootings happen at night, he'll be the first one to want to know what took place. But it's still in all, it's heartbreaking when you find out, you know, somebody killed their mother, you know, inside the privacy of their home. So, but we all have to come together as a community. And I say it over and over, we must provide resources for communities.
Chief, my concern is that the mayor and these other councilmen, that I would think that they would be here and show support for the effort that all of these people in this room came here for.
Yeah.
That's right. And I see Ashby.
Well, I think just to ask Mr. Foote, because that's one of the things in my Operation Crush plan, is we need to have more of these meetings where we have stakeholders in the community to come together and hear from the police. Please hear from us. If there's a gun problem in the city, I need backup. I need help from the citizens to voice your opinion about these guns. Because it is a problem.
Yeah, I see several things. I see that one first. Yes, ma'am.
I would just like to make this remark. It seems to me from what I hear that the court system does not do its part. These people who do commit crimes do not get punished ever. The other question I'd like to ask is, when you say y'all issue citations for the drag racing and spinning, I'm just curious, how much is the citation?
I don't have that number. The courts will have that
And
number.
if they don't come and pay their citation, is there any repercussion? Because there just don't seem to be any consequences to the actions. And I'm a mother of 3 kids, and I know that if you don't have consequences,
Correct.
nobody's going to do anything.
I agree with you 100. I agree with you 100%. We just enforce the law. We issue the citations. We don't determine how many sentences they get, whether they go to jail.
That's not the problem, it's the people.
Correct. Correct. Correct.
Thank you. And due to our time, and please, we're going to try to keep these to 2 minutes. So we have responses to 2 minutes. We have quite a few questions to ask. I think I seen a hand here. Yes.
I heard the chief speak on 15, 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old kids. These kids are walking around with guns on their hip. Someone needs to go to the legislature, preferably our city government, and demand the stop of this open gun law. This is not ours. It's Jackson. These kids are walking around intimidating the neighborhood. You say you reach out to the people in the neighborhood for help. These people are afraid. They tell on their neighbor kid selling dope. That gets back to that kid. They retaliate and shoot these people around the left. That's getting rude.
Yes, sir.
We talk this and we're going around circles with this. The gun show is a chance. Bringing in the gun, fools or good, keep their guns at home or in their cars or whatever, but these kids are walking around with guns strapped to their side. And if they get stepped on their feet, they shoot their brothers down.
Yeah, I will
agree
say,
with that.
I think we are clearly, we have an issue with that. There are instances that we as a community, we have to step up. I will be looking forward to garnering a relationship with the chief and the sheriff and the attorney office so we can find a comprehensive way to get parents involved. As a neighborhood association president, I'll tell you, as recently as last week, we had a young man that stole UPS packages from a doorstep. And he went to the grandfather and the family and said, hey, listen, We don't want them to get in the system for something as simple as stealing things from from the doorstep. You can give them an opportunity. And we said, hey, well, let's have them come out and participate in our cleanup. Just try to redistribute that energy, do something positive. Lo and behold, I get a call from neighbor Ken, what's going on Greenbrier? There's 4 police cars over there. I said, well, I don't know what's going on. He said, well, to follow up with that, those same young men just went and burglarized something at a store. So the parents have to do their part also, because we gave them an opportunity to avoid jail. And the parents can do their part, because I know that the system sometimes inherits those young men who should be doing something better than incarceration. But there was an opportunity for parents to step up and do their part, and they failed those kids, because now they're in the system in addition to the other young man who you all have been charged with housework and following it. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I want to piggyback off what the gentleman was saying. We are scared in our homes. My daughter just called me the other day. She called me and told me, she said, Mom, she said, they're shooting, what do I do? So I had to instruct her to get on the floor, go to safety. This has been an ongoing problem for the past several months. Okay, when they did that shut down the highway, the interstate, what happened, I do remember, that particular weekend, it was a lot of police present. Okay, what's happening in just this past weekend, I noticed when an issue is addressed or something comes out on the news, that I noticed like this past weekend, I must say it was in the Northside Drive area over there, it was a heavy police presence. But what is happening, in my opinion, was happening after after you don't hear anything about it, then you have these same people cruising and going up and down the highway. We are walking at night, all times of the night, about these loud mufflers and noise, and it's scary. You are even just scared to go to your neighborhood store. Something, we are scared in our own homes. Something needs to be done. Something needs to be done. So I just want to say to everyone, if you hear gunshots going off in your neighborhood, that's not normal. Call the police.
Amen.
Call the police. And once they know that you mean business, we need to take our neighborhoods back. It's time for us to take our neighborhoods back.
Thank you. Also, I think we have the district attorney here, and we also have the from the U.S. Attorney Office. If one of you, if possible, could you briefly expound upon your efforts to prosecute these crimes and make sure that we are not able to get as many repeat offenders? I think the judicial system plays a significant role in keeping these people out of the streets. The police can only do one part of it, and then we have to keep them where they belong when they commit these violent acts against our system. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Jody Owens. I'm the district attorney here in Hinds County. And with our federal partners, I know it doesn't seem like this, but we are prosecuting a lot of crime. Last year alone, we indicted 2,000 felony indictments for the year 2020, and that was 1,400 individuals who were arrested. We're in the legal system, which cases are moving forward. In the last 3 weeks, I've tried, at least our office has tried 4 cases where individuals were given in excess of 40 years in prison and some life in prison. Now, it's not enough, because none of us feel safe enough when we see the increase in crime. In 2020, we saw a 45% increase in crime in 2019. That's about right, Chief? And that's violent crime. And no one wants to hear the reality is that's happening throughout the nation. We've seen an increase in municipal crime for a lot of different factors, including code, including guns and accidents. But there are people who are working really hard on prosecuting crimes. Our federal partners in the back, they're actually coming to our office every week and getting the felony cases, particularly with the guns, certain charges they can charge and certain charges I can charge. So if the individual can't have a gun, they're taking those cases and putting them in their system faster because their system is not as jammed as our system is. We have increased the number of grand juries we're having because we're arresting more people in a more rapid rate. It's still not enough. We know that. That's why we're continuing to work with our other federal partners and task forces to do that. From a judicial question, I think you said about the courts, there's so many different factors with the system and how it works that impacts it. And when individuals first get arrested, my office doesn't have access to them. The bonds are not set by my judges or my office. The bonds are set by the municipal judges. Then we have the indicted individuals, but the reality is we're far behind where we need to be from a standpoint of the speed with which we can indict individuals. The way we prevent crime from a prosecutor standpoint is that we arrest individuals, we prosecute them, and make sure that they actually in prison for a long time where they can't hurt anybody else in our communities. And that's what we're trying to do more and more. We have got additional resources from the State Legislature this year. Lieutenant Governor Holzman and Secretary Gunn, even the governor, have identified that we have serious problems in Jackson. For the first time, they've allocated more resources for us to fight crime. I think the Fusion Center is also working. The Sheriff's Jail is full. Is that right, Sheriff? I mean, we've had probably, when COVID first started in March of 2019, we got the population down to about 300.
About 350.
And right now, how many is it?
508.
So there's 200 more people that are in jail that we're trying to process through our system. I say all these things to let you know that people are being arrested, and believe it or not, the Jackson Police Department is above the national average in crime solved. But there are things that we need from you in this community to help us do our job. One of the biggest disappointments that we've had in the DA's office is that we have an individual registered in trial because they won't take a plea because we give them serious time and we won't have enough people show up for jury duty. That's a huge failure of our community because no one really wants to serve on jury duty, but if we don't do that, you can't help us do our part. This system does not work without your involvement. To the individual who spoke earlier, you're absolutely right. If you don't call the police and say something, if we don't accept we have to do something about this, we can't get there timely, we can't do what we need to do. It is a community problem. Those of us who are elected and sworn to do our job, I promise you there's some really committed individuals every day doing their job. But we do need help in the community, particularly for me at least. I need everyone in this room to hear the sound of my voice to not only serve on the jury, but to ask your friends and family to do so. Because it's nothing like an individual who's ready to go to trial, has been in jail for a year, and he goes back to that jail with 6 more months. And that's where the backlog continues. And until we all come together on that issue, it's ineffective regardless of getting arrested or if I get them prosecuted. I'm happy to take any questions. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, my brother was murdered in Jackson, 2019. We have a film, your office and everything. Y'all have this film, and we're being told that you don't have anyone to go with him up to see what happens to him. Not see what happens to him. Not only that, you don't have the autopsy report. In April 9th, and 2 years for it. So you don't have a medical examiner to examine the police to see what happens, like the gun. You don't know how many shots. We don't have anything.
Could you stand up, ma'am?
So what resources and what agencies are you using to help solve the murders with? A lot of times, we're not going to take it serious because they know the crime is solved. We 2 years in, and we don't even have an autopsy. We have a film, it's on camera, but we've been told no one can do it. So what are y'all, like, what resources do you have to solve the murders that has already happened back in 2019?
My condolences for your loss. The 2 issues you raised, one is the autopsy issue, the second is actually probably more of a law enforcement issue about what videos and equipment might use to enhance videos. On the autopsy issues, that is the biggest impediment in our office for being able to make offers on murder cases. Right now, there's probably about anywhere from 150 to 200 autopsies that are outstanding. So when you say your brother's in 2019, I assure you that there's a list that I have that I'm waiting on autopsies in 2018. That's an issue that the state crime lab does autopsies for the state of Mississippi. That's an issue that's run by the Commissioner of Public Safety, Commissioner Sean Tindall. I've met with him on multiple occasions about this. There was a 6-month period we didn't have anyone there. He starts back, I believe, May 1st there. That's an issue that we have identified that we need help with. To do a forensic pathology exam, it can't be just a pathologist, it has to be a forensic pathologist. They are hard to find in the state. I've actually gone and worked with UNC to see if I can get them to implement a program there because like you, I'm frustrated because I can't solve them unless I get the pathology reports to show the cause of death and manner in which an individual was killed. So your brother, unfortunately, is with a lot of individuals who are trying to resolve their cases. We're begging for money to do so. The average one, when we talk about testifying and coming to trial, is about $10,000. All right, so do the math, 2,000 times 200, I think that's about 2 million. So we are asking for money from the state legislature. We've declared it to be a public crisis because we realize that people it re-victimizes the victim when your family can't even know that the individual took your brother's life and be held accountable. And it cripples our office when we can't trial those cases. And actually, if you talk to the sheriff, he'll tell you the majority of people that are in his prison for that very reason, his jail, are people who committed violent crimes. So we all understand and appreciate the problem. We are asking for the money, we're begging for the money. I'd love people to volunteer. Right now, we're trying to get forensic pathologists to come from out of state to come do that because it's such a rare field. The judges that I work with told us that we're going to start trying cases without the pathology reports. If we don't have them, that puts us at a disadvantage. The biggest service I can do to you and other people like you is not going to put our best foot forward when we try that case to get justice for your brother and your family. With respect to the video audio equipment, I'm at a point now that I'm pleading whoever can help us. If there are people in the community services that can help us with things like that, let us know. We watch thousands of surveillance videos a year, whether it be the home, the ring cameras, the store cameras. They pull them all night. I guarantee you, Deputy Chief over there at Robert Homicide, 2 o'clock in the morning, they're pulling the camera footage. But oftentimes it's poor camera footage. You just can't see the individuals to make it through when it comes to trial. That's not an excuse, it's just an explanation. But if there's services out there, we certainly want to try them to enhance it. We use the local ones we can. We try to do it ourselves, but we do need help when it comes to surveillance because that really makes a difference when it comes to getting the conviction.
Thank you. We're going to be a little bit more expedient. I'm going to give U.S. Attorney Office Pat Lemon to come up to talk about what his office can do to help further these prosecution dilemmas or issues.
Good evening. Again, my name is Pat Lemon. I'm the Chief of the Criminal Division in the United States Attorney's Office. I'd like to echo what the District Attorney, Mr. Owens, said. We have someone that goes to the United States Attorney's, or excuse me, goes to the DA's office once a week and reviews cases with his assistant DAs. And we pull those cases with his permission that are of a federal nature that we are allowed to prosecute by law. We can only prosecute cases for which a federal crime has been committed, and that is not always the same. But as I said the last time I was in a group about this size, I was at the JPD Training Academy with the chief and with the sheriff and with the folks here, and I mentioned that our office stands ready to prosecute any violent felony that is investigated for which there is a federal nexus and that we can prosecute. We've been doing that quite successfully over the last several years. Typically, when people come into the federal system, when they are indicted or when they are charged for a violent crime, they do not get a bond, which we like, and which helps you all stay safe. So we are trying everything we can to assist the Jackson Police Department, the Sheriff's Department, and the District Attorney's Office, including we host a meeting every Monday with JPD, with the Sheriff's Office, and with the DA, which we discuss crimes that have occurred in the preceding weeks and how crimes are progressing through the federal system. That is our contribution to the city of Jackson. We will do anything we can to help. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, we're going to take a couple more questions, but I do want to ask, this is a question from Ridgewood Park for Jackson Police Department. Normally, our neighborhood watch program, we utilize the UCR report that gives us data on what crime happens in our precinct. As of today, our secretary checked the database that's on the website, and what she found is that it had been updated since July 2020. Is there another website that she could find the data at? And if so, why haven't the data been updated since July 2020 on the city's website as of today?
Okay. Good morning. My name is Tyrone Buckley. I'm the Deputy Chief of Administration. Crime stats falls under my division. Currently, the Jackson Police Department is transitioning to a paper system, which entails us taking all our data from our old system and transferring it to the new system. In that there's a delay with processing that information because we have yet to do the data conversion. So that information that was once readily available is no longer available until we get our system up and running, get our officer trained, and the individuals who actually utilize the system actually put in accurate information. We've been having dialogue with different people that come to us and ask us specifically about that. But we're trying our best to get that up as soon as possible so that we can produce the information that's needed for the community to feel safe to understand what is going on in your particular community. One of the initiatives that the chief put in place that we're trying to do, we're trying to get crime by ward. That helps individuals that live in a certain area to look specifically at their ward, for their council member to be able to just heard a bunch of bullshit information that they may have with violent crime or property crime or any type of crime that's going on in their community. But currently, we're just having a delay with our transition as it relates to training, getting our system up and effectively running, and also being able to produce an actual report to display at this time.
Thank you. This would be for either or even Jackson Police Department. How many officers are on beat in Precinct 4 on the Charlie shift?
Right now, I have roughly 13 to 14 officers on charge.
Okay. Thank you. Now, this question here, going forward, we're going to be talking about the businesses that we invited. I think MBAR, the Vibe, I see the hands in the back. I'll give you one moment. And also the Bulldog. I know there has been some recent discussions about what has been on in that area. We have the owner here of MBAR, and we have, I think, a management staff here from Vibe and Bulldog. I would like to give him an opportunity to come up and tell us what corrective measures have been taken and after at least one incident occurred on the property. Please welcome Mr. Richard Bradley as he comes, please.
Good afternoon. Again, my name is Richard Bradley, and I'm the owner of MBAR. I think this meeting is a great day for our community today. Before I answer the question, and I can speak from both realms of being an actual resident of Ward 1 for the last 16 years. Can you hear me? I'm sorry. Yeah. I can speak from both realms of being a resident of Ward 1 for the last 16 years and a business owner. So some of the things that we have actually put in place to try to help the Sheriff's Department and the Jackson Police Department, because just to piggyback on what they're saying, they're short on staff. So as a business owner that's vested in the community and will not tolerate violence, will not let violence run us from our community, we're willing to come in and add more officers to the perimeters around our business. We're also going to raise the age limits on some nights, and we're constantly evaluating our business. If you're a business owner, you know it takes a lot of time to evaluate and get things right. We're not saying we're perfect. We're not saying incidents are going to happen again, but those are some of the things that we're going to do on our side to make sure that we can try to prevent incidents from happening in our area. Also, too, I want to say, I want to issue a challenge to businesses in the area. As a business vested in that area, and I live in that area with my family and my daughter and my wife's, we have I would say the big name businesses or national brands. You have citizens in the area in that area on the weekend, and they're actually walking up and down the street, whether they're shopping, whether they're going to different entertainment venues in that area, whether they're over there eating with their family, and you got national brands turning their lights off on a 6 or 7 acre property, and that's just an invite for crime. That's something that maybe some ordinance or something we can put together with the city to make sure that these national brands are not just coming in, sucking from our community, and not giving back to the community. The MBAR, we launched the program, MBAR Cares. We give back to our community on a day-to-day basis. We give out laptops to the kids. I know JPS had a laptop shortage with the COVID situation going on. So we stepped up. One thing about us here at the MBAR, we will not let crime run us from our community that we actually live in and
that we serve in on a day-to-day basis. I believe our community deserves to have entertainment in our area. I believe that we can all work together and make sure it's a safe environment. And it's going to take some cooperation from the local businesses and the national businesses in the area. I mean, that's my point of view on it, and I'm welcome to take questions from anyone who have any questions about it. Go ahead, sir.
I wanted to thank you for being here.
Yes, sir.
And I wanted to say that the M-bar is not the problem. Crime is the problem. We need to increase funding for police. The only people who want to decrease funding for police are criminals and ignorant fools. Research consistently shows that when you decrease the amount of police on the street, crime increases. We need to increase the number of police on the streets, and I know we can't do that right now because our economics have decreased. The tax base in Jackson has increased. Businesses are dying in Jackson. We don't need to do things that are going to hurt business. We need to do things that are going to help business. During the past few months, Outback is closed, Twin Peaks is closed, Logan's is closed, and I heard a report the other day that said Target was going to close. We don't need to do things that are going to hurt businesses. We need to do things that are going to help businesses. And while we cannot increase the number of police on the streets right now, one thing we can do, Chief Davis, instead of having officers playing hide and seek, trying to catch people speeding, we need to have them stationed somewhere where they can try to catch criminals instead of trying to catch citizens who are simply going a little over the speed limit. And until we are ready to address the availability of guns, we are wasting our time. What law would have stopped Adam Lanza? Not a single law would have stopped him because his parents bought the guns legally. They passed every background check. The thing that caused Sandy Hook was the availability of guns. And as long as we're not addressing the availability of guns, we're wasting our time.
Thank you. Mr. Bradley, as I understand it, as I pass through that area often, you all, I'm not sure, do you all pay for the security that's in at-home parking? I normally see sheriffs out there after 10 o'clock. You all pay for the security?
Yes, that's a cost that we incur on a day-to-day basis. So whenever we're open, if you come by the M-bar, you will see the sheriff presence there. So, and to reiterate on what he said, you know, the easiest thing for a business is to run. Like he said, these businesses are leaving the area, which is taking away tax dollars from our community. It helps with our infrastructure and things like that. We're not going to run. I mean, if it takes a business like ours to come in and support the Jackson Police Department or the Sheriff Department, we're here for it. We're not going to stand and let criminals deter what we need to do to make our community better. Our brand was built on hope and vision. We have a vision for that area, and we won't let anyone deter us from that, and we're going to keep pushing and striving forward to be great partners in the community with our law enforcement. We've also reached out to the Jackson Police Department. We will donate a camera in that area where you got people walking from Vibe, you got people walking from Bulldogs, you got people walking from Chuckles, in that area all times of night. So M-bar, we're going to take on that cost and purchase a camera so JPD can have a 24-hour surveillance in that area. We're going to stand firm. And all we need is for you guys, for the community to come together, like I think the young lady said over there, and let's put an end to this violence. Let's try to figure it out.
Great. So this comes from Jamestown and Wildwood, the loud music, and I think you, Councilman Councilman Foote, is there an ordinance that addresses loud music at a certain time of the night? I know residents have reported, at least on 3 separate occasions, that not necessarily means it's coming from M-bar, but those entertainment venues that's in that area.
There are some ordinances. There are some ordinances that address loud music or loud noise. But it's hard to enforce because oftentimes when the police comes here, they cut the music down or cut the noise down. So at least that's my understanding. Is that, am I off base there on that, Chief Dave? Okay. It's not a problem. What about the other businesses? Can we have some people from Bulldog or the Live if they want to come up and introduce themselves?
Are there any more questions for the MR?
You can stay up here.
Yeah, this has obviously been a topic of discussion, so if you have a question for these business owners, this is the opportunity now. I think that I commend them for stepping up and coming out.
Well, I would like to say something else too. I spoke with Councilman Foote, and we met earlier this week on Monday, and there needs to be lighting addressed in our area. In the neighborhoods, in the business area, we need crosswalks in our area. You know, I think the time is now to speak and let everyone know what we need, because what can happen is beautification plays a major part in, I believe, on how people respond and how people act. You know, the thing is, if you go down our area, it's deteriorating. You got businesses trash all everywhere. You got brush and shrubs growing up everywhere. That's not how you operate in a community. You know, the thing is, we've got to figure out, and I know Mr. Councilman Foote said some things about grants that need to be written or whatever the case may be. Hey, contact me. I work at Jackson State. I know grant writers everywhere. If it's grants out there to be written, look, give me a shot. My Dr. Bradley, my wife, she writes grants on a day-to-day basis. We're here to serve. We're here to serve. And if you can't get it done, if money is an issue, hey, just let someone know, and we can probably come together and figure this thing out. Everyone needs recreation in their life. Everyone needs it. Everyone needs entertainment. It's a part of human nature. But if you want to have a safe environment, it has to be a cause and a census to make our area beautiful again.
Sure. Thank you. There's a question there.
When it comes to lighting in the neighborhoods, a lot of times it's simply that a street light is out. If you get a hold of Entergy, just go online and put it in. They will come out and fix it. I've had it done numerous times in our area.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I have a question for the sheriff.
Yes, sir.
In past administrations, Sheriff McMillan would take the inmates to pick up litter up and down the I-55 corridor routinely. Is that something that you could reinstitute?
I get asked that all the time, and I would love to. The problem that we have now that Sheriff Mack didn't have was he was allowed to house state prisoners inside of the facility, inside the Raymond Detention Center. Since about 2015, the Hinds County Detention Center has been under a consent decree. So the federal monitors frown on us housing individuals down there unless they absolutely have to be there. So that is that basically eliminated that. Now, what we hope to do is, and we're supposed to be reaching out in the near future, there's some new personnel that's over at the Mississippi Department of Corrections, and hopefully we can propose maybe borrowing some inmates to come over and do pickup here that may be housed over in Rankin County that we don't have to house. So we're going to approach it from that perspective. But the reason why it stopped is because of the consent decree, and we no longer house inmates, state inmates, unless they're getting ready to go to court.
Well, they also have the Hinds Restitution Center downtown in Pascagoula you can use, and the Women's Center in Global you can use, as well as Madison.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to, but we have to make an arrangement with them that's suitable to the Justice Department before we can get that done.
Gotcha. So we're going to speed the questions up. Please allow your question to be 30 seconds only, because we're about to close shortly. Yes.
My question is for the councilman. I think everybody agrees that gun violence is a pretty multifaceted issue. I'd like to know what the council is doing to actually fund. Is gun violence a concern at all? Is it something that y'all are willing to put funds into to actually make it a concern?
You're asking about funding for
violence intervention programs, increased lighting, things that evidence is showing will decrease gun violence in the city.
Well, I think the increased lighting thing is an important point, as Mr. Bradley pointed out, and it's my plan to reach out to Entergy and see if we can get some of the latest state-of-the-art lighting over there in the Ridgewood Court area to improve the lighting and make sure that the lights are actually functioning correctly as well. Now, as to resources, one of the things we've been pushing for is additional police presence and trying to get grant writing through COPS program, which is part of the Department of Justice, can supplement police salaries for hires, new hires. And so that's one of the things that the council is really focused on, is trying to get additional funding. We just recently passed a set aside $500,000 to work with the sheriff's office to get additional police presence to the sheriff's office. We also want to get additional funding from the federal government through the COPS program to help hire a lot of the, fill up a lot of the positions that are not filled right now in the police department.
Are y'all focusing on anything other than policing, or are you taking a multifaceted approach, or is policing where y'all are mainly focused?
Well, we're interested in every possible tool, lever we can pull to try to address the crime issue. So we're not limiting ourselves at all. We're open to any ideas and suggestions. So,
because I know the police chief had said that he had heard of the Cure Violence program and that it had been presented. Is that something that the council is willing to invest in?
Well, it have to be. I don't know what the invested dollars would how much it would be, but we're willing to